Hello and welcome back to the Disclosure Team YouTube channel. I am joined by the one and only Chase Kloetzke. Thank you for joining me, Chase. How are you today?
I'm really great, and I'm looking forward to this, and I have been for a couple weeks, I guess, and thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
No, the pleasure is genuinely all mine. Like I just said before we recorded, I've been following your work for many years now. So this is a dream come true to actually sit down face to face with you and discuss your involvement in the UFO subject. So I think the first thing is to just sort of go back a little bit into your history, because I believe you were former Department of Defense and a private investigator. So if you could just take us right back and how your career sort of got that to that position.
Okay. Yeah, working for the DoD, I was a master trainer, master instructor, and really developed programs for active duty guys for force readiness is what it was. So they get a special assignment, and I would design a program to make them physically, mentally, and emotionally ready for success, like they had to finish this mission. So that's what I did for them. I never worked as a private investigator, but I did school and pass. So I was licensed, but I never worked. What I did was the training because, you know, being an investigator, I wanted as much knowledge on, you know, what you do, what you don't do as possible. And it's always been important to me to kind of get the best I can. And wasn't a cop. Really, there's not a lot of classes on, you know, picking up forensics. There's forensics on how to process it, you know, and analyze, but there's not a lot on that. So that's why I took just private investigations. I took the it's an international forensic collection certification. It's not a college course or anything. It's just, you know, kind of online, but, you know, it taught me a lot. And so that's how I got those two.
That's incredible. And I love the fact that you didn't go into that work, but you just wanted the knowledge base. I think that's amazing. So yeah, my hat's off to you for that. So during that time with working with the DoD, was there anything you came across UFO related even back then?
No. And, you know, my husband's former active duty, right? He retired as a Navy commander. And wow. I would ask him all the time. It's like, aren't you hearing anything? Aren't you seeing anything? Because he's a submariner. So that's even more exciting, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, nope, never have. Nope, never have. And I'm just like, you know, and it's kind of an interesting relationship because submarines is a silent service. Like I didn't know 90% of what he did. And of course, for plausible deniability, some of the stuff that I would do, even go against the government, I didn't tell him. So he'd come home from work and be like, how was your day? It was great. Ran into an old shipmate. How was yours? Really good. They, you know, interviewed a couple witnesses. No details. Like,
yeah,
that was our
life. That's amazing. But hey, it worked.
It did. 33 years later, he's still the hottest guy in the room to me.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. That's brilliant. So let's bring it forward a little bit to 1996 and you joining the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. Can you talk about how that came about? And actually, let me just preface that with, did you already have this big passion for UFOs? Was it something you were always intrigued by?
Absolutely. I was 17 years old. I'm home, you know, from school with strep throat. And my stepmother came in and handed me a book. And it was Chariots of the Gods. And just the title, I was like, I'm ready. And did no church book because very churchy, right? And after a while, I just got bored. I picked it up. I, you know, opened up and I'm like, who asks questions like this? This is the coolest thing I've ever read. You know, I status quo, you know, my religion, I'm open on everything. It's, you know, I'm Mormon. So you don't ask questions like this. To me, it was full permission. It was like, oh, it's on now. I love this. And it was ever since then. So from 16, but I found out about MUFON because, you know, I'm old and grumpy. And my first computer, I was 36 years old. And the first thing I absolutely did was type in UFOs. I was shocked at how much was there. And then I ran across MUFON and I thought that was just the coolest thing ever, that you could join an organization and get handed cases. Like you didn't have to promote yourself, you know, like on Facebook, you know, they're all like this, you know, it's like, yeah. So it was fun. It was fun to start.
And so what was the kind of entry level that you went in at? Because obviously you did work your way right up.
Yeah, it was just field investigator, which is the most important position in MUFON. And I think they forget that a lot, because you're not a volunteer. You pay to do this. You know, you pay to be in MUFON. So, you know, I loved it for a while. Then an opportunity came up, which was they needed a new STAR team manager after Lang and Bigelow and that whole thing imploded. And so they asked if anybody was interested, just give one piece of paper on your qualifications, why you think you'd be a good one. So I sent mine in, didn't think I had a chance in Hades of getting in there. And all of a sudden, one Sunday morning, I got a phone call, and it was from the DOI at the time. And he said, he's like, my husband answered, he goes, can I speak to Chase? And yep, hold on. I get on the phone, and I'm like, hello, is this Chase? I'm like, yes, it is. And he kind of stumbled for a bit. And then he says, oh my gosh, I'm Chuck, and I'm calling to offer you the STAR team manager job. And we loved your resume. It was perfect. He said, but pardon me for stumbling a bit, because the one thing I guess we didn't know is you were female. It's my name, right? And I didn't put on I'm female. I talked about what I did with Homeland Security, talked about what I did with this. And then she went on, and he said, and I love this. This is even better. Even better than finding a new STAR team manager, you're female. He loved it.
That's
and I
incredible.
thought that was pretty cool, because that was the first time, like, I didn't get it because they needed a female position or sorry. It was strictly on my creds.
Nice. That's incredible. Yeah. I love that. And I think it's a bonus that you're a female as well, because yeah, I see a lot of the work for some of the females in the UFO subjects right now, and they just don't take no bull. Like the us blokes, we just seem to be arguing and all this, whereas all these new, well, I mean, yourself being in the subject for a while, but all these new females coming in, and they're really taking over, and it's such a breath of fresh air. They put us guys in check, that's for sure. So
it's funny because I think I embrace it more now, but I never identified as a female, because these good old boys, like, you know, I came in at old school. Now there's like manners, and there's certain things that, you know, people stick up for one another, and we're supporting each other. And back in the days, let me tell you, these boys did everything they could to get rid of Linda Moulton Howe. I mean, they put us through hell. I'm telling you, even just recently. They have no shame about trying to shred you into pieces. And it's happened several times. And I'm just, like you said, I don't work with people like that. I don't associate with people like that. I don't know who would want to even support somebody that all they do is tear down others. Yeah. And so my revenge on that is, hey guys, when your phone's not ringing, it's me.
I love it. I love it. I mean, MUFON did have that that whole old guard, bit of a stereotypical older white gentleman kind of vibe to it back then, right?
They still do. A MUFON meeting, like a MUFON meeting, looks like bingo night at an old folks' home.
Oh dear me, that's funny. But listen, it didn't hold you back. It certainly didn't stop you in the work you were doing, because you went through the ranks. And I think, what was it? Where are we now? Because you talk us through the promotion things, because you got right up there to director of investigations.
Yeah, and well, I actually quit for a while. It's like,
okay.
STAR team manager. I found, you know, some little hanky panky going on in the CMS, and you know, there was this little group of guys that would go in and steal all the good cases, all the you know, they decided they needed to run that. Well, when I caught them doing that, that's the worst thing you can do. Like, you're robbing the witnesses, you're doing this. So I quit in protest, because nobody was going to do anything about it, because they're the good old boys. So I quit. It was, I don't know, maybe 6 years later. Jan Harzan's at a conference I'm speaking at. And like, I don't even want to look at the guy, right? I'm just like, oh, no. Like, you know, because, you know, you have a bad taste in your mouth for people that don't stand up for the truth. And so he came and asked me if I wanted to go to lunch. And I'm just like, oh, what? Okay. Just like, it's so random. It's like, all right, I'll listen to what you have to say. We sit down. He orders a thing of French fries. He's like, let's share these French fries. And I'm like, a little bizarre, but okay, I'll eat French fries. It was so awkward at first. And then he literally looked at me and said, what do we need? What do I need to do to get you back in MUFON? And I said, I was start team manager. I wrote all the protocols, all the deployment policies. I wrote everything, you know, standard operation procedures, all of it. And I said, I want my own team, and I want it to be advanced team, and I want us to be funded to deploy. Wow. He just kind of looked at me because it was like, oh, like you're asking for something. I'm just, ooh, this is gonna be big and move on. But he gave it to me, and he called it special assignment team. And I recruited 12 of the best researchers, even a journalist, and investigators in MUFON. And we handled only the most complicated, sensitive, and confidential cases in MUFON. So I ran that team, and then, needed to shake up DOI a little bit. And so I was offered that position. So I was number 2 in MUFON. It was like,
wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive. And I like your veracity and going straight for the top when given the opportunity. That's incredible. So, so you became director of investigations in 2018, and how long did that last for before you resigned your position to pursue more things?
It was a little over a year. And I have to tell you, when you say the females aren't taking any guff, if you set rules in black and white and only they apply to certain people, they have been fired before, but these group of guys can do whatever they want. It's like, I didn't play. I fired them. I'm just like horrible things, not just, like racist things and,
wow.
Oh yeah. Like horrible things that we're just not going to put up with and move on. Well, that was my job, and they didn't like it. These oh man, they they put up the most horrible lies on websites. It was,
wow.
Yeah, it was horrible. Yeah. These guys, it's just crazy, but I'm sure they're back into MUFON because that's what they do. And it's so unfortunate because there's so many great people in MUFON. They really are. They're very sincere, talented, and they're doing a good job. It's the only reason they're still in existence, by the way.
Right.
But that old guard up at the board of directors, and the same old, it's just scandal after scandal after scandal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
for the new one, right?
Yeah, I mean, for myself personally, and a lot of people I speak to in the field, there is a black cloud hanging over MUFON to this day. And I guess they've done it to themselves. And like you say, I'm sure there are a lot of good people working for them, but unfortunately they are just pushed under this same black cloud as the people at the top, which is a shame. But
yeah, it is. It deserves it. They do it. They deserve it because honestly, I won't work with people like that. I just, I'm number 2. My ego could have been like, yeah, but I'm number 2 in this organization. I'm just like, no one cares about that. I care about working with people that, are an organization that's actually going to do what they say they're going to do. And when they don't, and this kind of behavior is tolerated, just like John Ventry. Everyone knew he was a racist. Like, well, they tolerated it for so long until everybody, including me. This ends now. I mean, it's just, yeah. But I kind of feel bad for the good ones that are still there because, they just need it, and I didn't.
No, of course. So upon your resignation, what was the first, I mean, were you aware and clear of where you then wanted to go, or is it a bit like, oh, what do I do now kind of thing? How did you feel?
Oh, no, I was well established, like going back into MUFON. Like I already had like cases. I'd done Star Child. I was already on the conference circuit, which I didn't see coming because to me, it's kind of, it's why I accepted no conference invitations this year because it's a gerbil wheel. It's, preaching to the choir. And it's like, I don't have anything really new to bring because everything I'm doing is in support of the politics and Lou Elizondo and Chris and, just really pushing out some of these activist type and setting up meetings, so this is what I do now. But I just, nope, I never just, kind of felt like, what do I do now? It's like, all right, what's next?
Nice. I like that. So if we could just talk about a couple of your investigations that you have done, like you just said, the Star Child skull, something I've followed for many years. So can you break down what actually became of that case? Because I know the skull was passed around, or it wasn't, it was just, I felt like there were some years where everyone was waiting for the answers. So could you just break that down as, as broadly as you want, or as
yeah. I was speaking at a conference. It was International UFO Congress, and I'm talking about why we need to up our game, why we need to have more detail and better admissibility, and that comes in forensics and proper handling of evidence, and blah 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 blah. At the end, people came up for questions, and this lady came up. Her name was Melanie Young, and she's like, "So, you really want evidence, physical evidence? How about some DNA? Because I have it for you." And she goes, I have everything you're going to need for your forensics. And so she's like, if you'll take the case. I had no idea what she was talking about at the time, but I did say, hey, somebody please duct tape her to the stage so I don't miss her later. Yeah, so it was Jacques Vallée was there at the time, and so she had invited me and Jacques Vallée to come up and look at the Star Child skull, and it was the first time I'm holding it, and I was just, there's a magic about this little skull, and I got a little choked up seeing it because I'm a mom, I'm a grandmom, and it's just, here's this little tiny skull, and yeah, it was a little crazy. It was a little crazy. So I agreed to go ahead and do the DNA and just really work a lot of sources. I backtracked on, what the previous guy had done. And also Gary Nolan was involved in the Star Child skull as well. So I just put all that aside. It's kind of like, I'm going to start new. I'm at fresh eyes, just like cold case, fresh eyes, something new. And so I took the DNA and then I sent it to the lab up in Canada that specializes in ancient DNA results. Right? So it's expensive. It took a little bit, but we got back that it was completely human. And so at this point, I've got about 10,000 people really mad at me because this Star Child skull had quite the following, and they made about $15,000 to $20,000 a year in donations to this little board that they had. But then I talked to Gary Nolan, and we have the exact same results. So it's matching. So now we have providence. Now we have it's done, guys. It's human. Well, that wasn't good enough because this little skull has been on a plaque. It's been on display. It's had a hat and a cigarette taken out of it. And I'm like, you know what? So Carrie McClure, who was my partner through all of this, actually, did the study on the background, and we found out the haplogroup, which is really easy now in DNA. And Melanie and Carrie and I, with the help of Ruben Uriarte, repatriated his remains to where it came from, which was by the Copper Canyon. And this little guy is now with, at least remnants of relatives that he had before. So the interesting thing is the female skull that was found with the Star Child skull actually was more intriguing to the doctors, because I went to osteology museums, bone specialists. They were all more intrigued with her because all the skull fractures and how she lived through all these skulls. And it's like it really made me sad because she was obviously beaten a lot. So it's it's just a sad story all the way around. But they're repatriated right now and sitting in a little museum that has, their little haplogroup, tools that they used and pottery and this. So that's the best we could do to this little guy. And it's actually illegal because when we found out he was Native American, that's illegal, man. You don't want to mess with the Indian Bureau of Indian Affairs out of DC, and I call them because it's illegal to display, transport, or exploit anything like that. So the minute I found that out, it was like, okay, so we're not, no more trap, and it's respect.
Yeah.
So the minute we found that out, so when it was possibly alien or half alien, but I was disappointed too, right? I've been doing this for centuries. I've been doing this for decades. And honestly, I wanted an alien. I wanted a hybrid. Of course I did. But it is what it is. But everybody can go look at my report, what we did. I talk about, I don't keep my sources secret. I'll tell you the lab, who the technician was, so everybody can vet what what we had done. And that work I did with Carrie is on a website called thefieldreports.com. And I've got several cases there.
Well, any of the links that we mentioned today, if there's some that I haven't got, I will ask you for them. You can send them me. I will put them all in the video description below. Obviously, I've got your website, chasekloetzke.com. That will be below as well, just so everyone can go and look into all the things that we talk about. But one last thing I'll say about the Star Child skull is that, yes, it was exciting and we all wanted it to be alien, but at least we finally got the answers. So kudos to you and your team for putting it to rest.
Yeah. And you know, I think a lot of it too was, you know, it's exploited. And the minute it was verified, I don't want to say I verified Nolan's DNA results.
Yeah.
Once that was done, it's like, you know, the money kind of dried up. People were, you know, they wanted to argue all day about, what about this and what about that? I mean, we even had electron microscopic work done because they talked about the rebar in turned out to be dust particles and and debris. And that makes sense to me because, you know, he's been in a box. It's been, you know, it's been cleaned, it's been bleached, it's been, you know, and so all this dust particle, it's been lacquered. The lacquer is what I was told. The lacquer put all that dust that was already on it. You know, it's like in the little pores of the skull. And that's what it was. And they even extracted this and proved it was dust. So, you know, there's no rebar, you know, all the stuff that was being said. So I finalized everything. I'm not going to talk about my personal opinion on what I felt was going on all these years with the Star Child skull. But my personal thought is, Lloyd Pye said many times his biggest dream was to have real scientists and real studies on the Star Child skull. And that's what we did.
There you go. I think that's all everyone wanted. Like I said, I followed that case for many years and it just seemed to be dragging and past here and past there, or nothing done on it. And it doesn't matter that it didn't turn out to be alien. It just got put to bed and the respect can be given to everyone involved. And then, like you say, the remains can be placed where they should be and the respect given to all involved.
So to be this little 5-year-old baby, you know, and it's like, it's over. Your nightmare is over and you can rest.
That's it. Yeah. So let's move on. There's one case that I saw on your website that really intrigued me, and this is about the DNA-filled metallic spheres.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So this was something that they're finding in like India, and there's professors that, you know, they doing this little experiment and it's up in the atmosphere, and these little trays were supposed to catch whatever dust or whatever is in the atmosphere up there, and they're going to study them. Well, they come back and they're finding these little microscopic, tiny little spheres, these like little, and they're metal. When they opened them up, it had DNA in it. And I was just stunned. It was just like, come on, like, you know, there's so much mystery going on right now. But because it's through the professors, you know, like in India and things like that, I don't have access to any of the spheres. But boy, I wish I did, because I'd have those worked on, like the labs that, you know, I have contact with. And, you know, and I was never afraid to call a scientist. You know, it's kind of like, hey, you guys like examine metal, right? So electron microscope, I got some metal. They never knew it was Star Child skull. They didn't know anything about what I had. How much is it going to cost me for you to do this? And that's what we did. So I think if you approach people, including Congress and our lawmakers, if you approach them with the right terminology and, you know, don't say, hey, we need to know the truth about UFOs. And they're going to look at you and say, I don't know the truth about UFOs. Yeah. So it's, you know, but yeah, so that was, I love those spheres though. I wish I could get one so bad. But
no data ever came out of India or anything like that, or
not so much. And I think the last I heard, they were peer reviewing some of the results, and that's going to take a long time because there was a lot of process, and these guys are going to put their name on, you know, something. But yeah, DNA inside metallic balls, microscopic, that, you know, we could breathe. It's like, what is going on?
That's so unusual and so far out there. I mean, that in itself to me sounds like something out of a science movie, a science fiction novel or movie. It's
Absolutely,
incredible.
absolutely.
But oh, lovely. Thank you so much. One case or investigation that really stood out to me is something that people still ask me about personally to this day. What are your thoughts on the Malibu underwater base?
I actually had a full investigation on that, and I was on a research vessel for 3 days with Rob Lowe because I couldn't afford that. And yeah, you can read that whole report. It's on my website, but it's also on the fieldreports.com. And yeah, we had a whole great big rover that went down. It was the Mohawk 2. It was the same one that Steven Spielberg used to find the Titanic. It was even the same crew. I was in the dry lab, which meant they were in the water or pulling it out, you know, but I'm in there just looking at all the video, and we took video, we had side scanning radar, all this stuff was going on, and it's a thrust fault there, you know, it's a thrust fault. So we've heard that before, and the images absolutely prove that. But then I followed up on a couple other the rumors, and that was, I think I did the one thing no one else thought of yet. I called Google. I'm like, hey, can I talk to you know, a person that's in charge of, you know, the photography? And, you know, when I explained, like, this is a, and then the guy, and I put his name in the report, it's like, he actually says to me, well, they're not photographs. Like, you know, most of this is computer imaged. No, I did not know that. Right. I did not. And so, and then they all talk about Port Magoo, which is right there. It's, you know, like this big army base or whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute, guys. Like, why are we not hearing about Port Hueneme? 30 or 50 miles north is Port Hueneme, which is home of the Seabees. Oh, it's home of underwater construction Seabees. Like, come on, guys. Like, how did you miss this? So I called him and I asked for the quarterdeck, and the CDO, command duty officer is what that's called. He gets on the phone. I'm telling him, I'm like, yeah, I'm Chase Kloetzke, and we're doing this investigation. I explained I was on a research vessel and what information. I said, as underwater construction divers, are you aware of any man-made object or construction there? And he goes, first of all, no. Second of all, we would never build there. It's right in the thrust. It's right in the earthquake lines. And
like fault lines.
Yes. And thank you. Yeah, the fault lines. And there's 2 of them, and they intersect directly on that spot. So he's like, no one in their right mind would ever build anything there. It's dangerous. It's not going to last. So why would you put the money? And I said, well, are you and your team responsible or know of or have any knowledge of, even in a rumor, that there's man-made construction and there are underwater bases outside of Malibu? And he's like, no. And I said, how about anywhere in the area from, you know, like down there in Tijuana and up? And he says, no comment. So yeah, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, that was really cool.
That makes you think. Wow, I like that.
Yeah, it would make sense that they would have something, even if it was like storage or whatever. You know, we know that we have missiles and, you know, weapons from the water that go to air, and you know, and so it just makes sense. But I could tell he was getting just a little uncomfortable towards the end of the call, because I was just pressing and pressing and pressing, and you know, and yeah, I think he just wanted to get off at that point. So. But I think him, you know, I know these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's interesting. We get the UFO connection with things happening around that area as well, off the coast of California, and in so many incidents dating back decades. And you know, it's so intriguing.
Interesting about that. I should call him back now that we have all this information out. Yeah, I think I might do that. Make a follow-up call and say, hey, we talked a couple years ago, and you know, now that a lot is coming out.
There you go. Call his bluff. Just say, yeah, someone else told me about something. I just thought I'd double check with you.
Yeah, that would be so awesome.
That'd be amazing. Absolutely. Oh, if anyone can do it, Chase, you can, I'm sure.
Thank you.
So let's move on, because another thing I wanted to discuss is your book with Richard Dolan, Admissible. How did that come about? I mean, that's incredible. I'll admit now I haven't read it. I'm sorry.
That's
But,
okay. That's okay. It's a field guide basically on how to, like, what I've learned to do, what I've learned not to do. And, you know, I've made mistakes too. And it's really just wanting to lay it all out. I wrote the protocols for, you know, STAR team and the SAT team, special assignment team, which is our 3rd tier. So that's tier 3 in MUFON. It was, these guys were advanced. And we weren't liked very well, because our first rule in SAT team was, you don't talk about SAT team. We don't talk about cases. We don't talk about anything, because we have to offer the people that want to come out confidentially, a team that they know will keep their mouth shut. And we did that. So we never talked about cases. And of course, you know, people are like, you know, government, whatever. But yeah, I'm sorry. What was
we're just talking about the book with Dolan, like how it came about. And I mean, yeah, I found it intriguing, you know, the two of you came together, put this out there. And, you know, I mention it to people that you worked with, Richard, and they have like, I have no idea. It just seems to be that it's not got the oomph that it should have.
Yeah, I don't, you know, it's been there for a while. I still get royalty on it, but you know, it's just a guide on what to do. And they're big lessons learned. Like, I've learned not to become friendly with my witnesses, because they get a lot of attention from us. Like, we're working their case, we talk to them several times a day, there's, you know, all this stuff going on, and we need permission for this, hey, lab just called. And then all of a sudden, when it's over, you go on to your next case, and they feel very abandoned, and they feel hurt, like, you know, you got what you want and you left. It's like, well, I'm an investigator. So so I just learned that I'd be there working, and they'd come down and say, hey, we're barbecuing, come up and get a burger. And I'm like, I can smell it, I'm starving. And I go and have my granola bar in my car, because I just learned that, you know, real investigators, such as police or detectives, they don't get friendly either. You know, they don't go in the house and they're like, hey, I got dinner on, you know, in the middle of investigation. So that's when I learned to behave more like them than normal UFO investigators. And so that was one lesson I learned. Another piece of advice in the book is, hey guys, you know, I know it's cool to have like UFO hunter on your car, and, you know, all these big signs, and, you know, alien hunter and all that crazy stuff. But pulling up to that house, maybe they don't want their neighbors to know that they just called a UFO person. Yeah. So to have your car, so it's just, you know, it's just things that, you know, I paid attention to. And, you know, even doing the 2-man rule, there's been one time I go, it's just so stupid looking back on it. But we meet, I have a girlfriend with me, and we're actually going somewhere else, but we're going through Kentucky. And I had this guy that's been begging me to come up and talk to him, and he wants to show me where a crash site was. So I decided to do a little detour to do that. So I parked my car, grabbed a few, you know, tools and things, and my girlfriend and I are walking out there, and we're getting further and further in the woods. And I'm thinking, I don't know this guy. Like, what am I doing?
God.
And it's like, and even the 2-man rule isn't very smart, because my girlfriend, if this guy does anything or pulls out a gun, or even worse, has more men down there waiting, she just cry and pee her pants, right? Like, like, yeah, I would at least do a little fighting, but
yeah.
Like, so, you know, you've already made a mistake when he's walking in front of me, and I'm thinking, I could take him. Yeah, you're already crossed the line. So nothing happened, of course. However, I did pull out my cell phone. I'm like, oh, wait, I need a moment. I said, my husband's tapping me, and he goes, oh, you getting a text? I'm like, oh no, he follows me. You know, he knows every step I take. He follows me on this app, and I just have to check in and tell him I'm okay.
Nice.
He knows exactly. I'm lying. I'm totally lying. I didn't have that app.
Of course, but
I have it. It's called 360. But I was really getting nervous, because this guy was sketchy. And funny, because after I said that, all of a sudden we were on the spot. I saw nothing there, and he turned around and we left. So I don't do that anymore. Like, if I don't have, you know, I do have a conceal and carry.
Right.
Sometimes I carry, sometimes I don't. But it's more important to have somebody with you that you can trust, you know. So just little things like that I learned down the road. And and it is a manual. I do work close with Richard. We've done a lot together, and we speak at a lot of conferences together. Like I said, it seems to always be me, Nick Pope, Richard Dolan, Linda Moulton Howe. It's like a lot of Alejandro Rojas. It's just we were all on this for so long, and so we all became like really good friends. And Richard's been to my house, for a weekend, and
Nice.
It's just it's we're kind of that group. Like there's a new group coming up, like the Young Guns, they call them.
Yeah,
you need that. You need those connections, like that you can call at any time and they pick up, because that's what we do. So it's I like that the connections are there, and I'm starting to see them build with the younger guys. And I've never seen more younger people getting interested than we do now, and I'm so thankful for that. And
it's
like
great.
really smart people, like little Christina Gomez.
Oh,
come on, right? Yeah,
she's incredible.
Yeah. And so, in all these podcasts, yours included, of course, and because I follow you as well. So
yes, thank you.
I do. I love you.
I think actually, I remember the day you followed me. I've been on Instagram for some time, but then I joined Twitter and I saw the notification, Chase Kloetzke followed you. I freaked out. I have to admit. Oh, yeah, because you followed me when I was like, I barely had anyone. I'd not done anything. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is, and every time things like that happen, it really motivates me to keep pushing in the right direction, because it's like you're saying, we've got the new guys and the more experienced people, but I think the connection between both is just as important, because we can learn from each other. And I've learned so much from you and Richard and everyone you just mentioned, Alejandro, and that, and I just, it's incredible. So I'm honored to be in the presence of such phenomenal names in the subject.
You guys,
and I hope,
Vinnie, you know that we don't feel that way about ourselves, right? We don't feel
I do. I know that, but at the same time,
it's like I just got done before I came on here, cleaning my bathroom, scrubbing my toilet. Like, I'm not special. We just work, but I appreciate it because it's cute. But, I have just as much respect for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we need to do that. We need to hook each other up, include each other in certain things. And it's like I get another big investigation, which I've been doing more production lately. And a lot of that had to do with COVID. Can't go out, can't do a lot of stuff outside. So, these TV shows would call. And I just got done with season 3 of The Proof Is Out There. I just did Roswell, The Final Verdict.
Oh, incredible. I love that show. Actually, can we touch upon that briefly? Because I get asked so many questions about, or not even so much questions, but people going, well, that AI system that they're talking about in that is just a ruse for TV to make it look legit. But could you expand on that at all?
I don't know much about it other than it is legit. And it's actually the same technology they use for finding Hitler or hunting Hitler.
Right,
they're just algorithms going, and they do this thing with like Homeland Security. Everybody uses it, and that's that facial recognition and facial like little twitches and things that you do. So they'll look at a person through an entire interview. Yeah. And there's certain catches or tells, as they call it. But I don't know much about the math or whatever, but it is legit. Sure. It's absolutely legit. I like doing that show. I hope we get to do something like that again with another big case. I love that. However, I am in a a Netflix documentary that is the worst thing I've ever seen. It's absolutely horrible. It's like, was it Unveiling Secret UFOs, whatever? But
there's the one that came out recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the end, they call me a investigative journalist. I'm like, what are you guys doing with this? Like, they edited a lot of what all of us said, where I'm like, I know Richard didn't say that like that. Like, yeah. Anyway, it's horrible. I'm so embarrassed.
Is this the one that was, I might be wrong, were they Hungarian journalists who were meant to do a documentary? It turned into a Netflix series. And I think it seems like they duped everybody.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And because I at least I was in good company.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but
no. But it isn't nothing you did wrong or anyone else did wrong. But people generally got duped by these people. And yes, I think everybody in this field knows that. And it's a shame. So we feel for you genuinely. I've had conversations with fellow colleagues about it, and it's a shame. But I guess it happens. here and there. But
and I just learned to not be so, you know, I never feel privileged or flattered. I feel like I have an opportunity to get a voice out there, because actually it was Race Hobbs on KGRA that told me, when you don't do it, they're going to find someone else not as credible. And we saw that many times. And so I don't do everything, but I've learned to just be a little more discreet, just like seating, Extraordinary, the seating. I was actually associate producer on that, and I also appear, but I knew this production company and they were stand up. So I knew the quality was going to be good and the content would. It's so funny how it starts out one way and ended up a different way, because we were actually working on the missing fetus syndrome, and Jack Ross and I were writing a book about that, and, you know, getting facts and doing our research, and, you know, and then it turned into this movie. So I'm proud of that one. The other one, I'm hiding my head in shame.
No, because like I said, you didn't know any better. Everyone else, George Knapp, nobody knew what it was going to be. So
I love George. I love George. We spoke 2 conferences in a row the last time we were at Congress together. Then we went to Branson and worked the Gen 6 conference. Right. And they sold that whole theater out. There were 3,000 people in that audience. Wow. And live feed was over, I think, 16,000 as it began. It grew after that. That was George and I, like my profile, not my profile picture, but my banners and stuff like that. It shows me on the stage. George Knapp took that for me. Like, it shows me on the stage and it shows the crowd. And I'm just like so grateful to him. He is such a gentleman. He is such a nice man. And I know he takes heat from even like Chris Mellon, like, well, why are you giving it to these guys? Because he's been doing this when it wasn't cool. Like, how many years he started out talking about UFOs as a legit journalist. I think he deserves all of it. So,
Chase, let me move it on a little bit to something that I like to ask most people that I interview. And that is, have you ever experienced anything for yourself, whether it be a sighting, an interaction, or something that you can't explain?
Oh, yeah, several times. And, you know, seeing things that aren't supposed to exist. For as many times as I'm in the field, I don't investigate on a phone. I was bound to run into something. I don't like it, though. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to be part of the story. I don't want to become a new witness, but it's happened. And probably the biggest one was 2010. I was assigned a STAR team case, and it was in rural Tennessee, like totally like rural dirt roads, you know, miles between houses and farms. And but the witness reported seeing these orbs and these orange orbs and other things in the sky, like things that come together. And and he even said that he and his cousins would chase them down these dirt roads. Well, that caught my attention, because what do you mean chase them? So like they're moving and working these roads? I'm like, he's like, absolutely. I'm like, okay, so when can we come out? Unfortunately, I think it was a day before I was getting ready to go out there. They had an epic flood from Nashville to Memphis, and everything was underwater. So we had to wait for the waters to recede to even get there. Right. So finally it did. And I was scheduled to go out there on a Saturday, and he called on a Thursday night, and he's like, it's happening. Things are going on. This is exactly what happens before the triangles get here. I'm like, triangles? Wait, you never mentioned triangles. And so I'm like, I'm on my way. I literally got off the phone, grabbed my go bag, kissed my husband, grabbed a granola bar and a thing of water. And I went and I grabbed another STAR team investigator. And we go up to his house. We pull up in the driveway, and he's waiting there, and we get out, and immediately he's like, come here, come here. He goes, look up there. So I'm looking, and sure enough, it took a minute, you know, for my eyes to adjust, because there's no light pollution at all. But then I start seeing like these little dots of lights, and they're all like coming together, and then they move in unison, and then they all separate. But if you got tired of watching that one, turn around, because there's another group here, another group there. It was bizarre. So I'm on my tablet already trying to determine where's the satellites, where's the ISS, even though I knew this is not how they behave, but I have to rule out usual suspects. Yeah. Well, all of a sudden the witness says, hey, I have a cornfield down there and you have a panoramic view. And he goes, you want to go there? Again, right? Yeah, sure. We'll jump in your car. We don't know you. Let's go. So we do. And I'm setting up my table with all this equipment. And he comes out with this big old shotgun. I'm just like, he goes, no, Chase. He goes, we have a problem with coyotes out here. Right. And he goes, this is in case they come. And I said, okay, because if you're a serial killer, I'm going to be really pissed. And so I'm setting up my equipment. And all of a sudden, literally, he's like, here it comes. Here it comes. I knew it. I knew it. He's all excited because for him, other people are going to see this too. So he's not crazy. Right. And investigators. So sure enough, I look and it's a white light and it's like an orb and it's coming, coming towards us. 2 more pop up. Bing, bing, right? And it's getting close and close. And pretty soon I could start seeing that structure. It's a triangle. They're not separate lights. They're all on one vehicle. And it just keeps moving. And I'm picking up my cameras. Nothing's working. Like I thought it was battery drain, but everything was just shut off. So I have 4 different cameras, different makes and models. I've got my tri-field meter. That's not working. I'm picking up, a Geiger counter wasn't working. It was just, everything was dead. And now I'm mad because it's right there, right? It's right there. Why can't I get a picture of this? As the triangle's coming closer, it doesn't change speed, height, direction. It's just, I can't even describe how it moves. It didn't float. It wasn't flying. It wasn't gliding. It just is different. And it's huge. And it's intimidating because you feel like this big. Yeah. And it's, it just flies. And, I remember picking up a camera saying, I'm going to throw this effing thing. Like, I'm so frustrated. It was just crazy. And all we could do is just watch it continue and it just goes away. Well, concerned about my equipment at this point. I'm still frustrated. So what I did was I decided, because everything's back online, everything's working, camera's back, everything's back. So whatever it was, it just shut it off. But I wanted to change my batteries anyway, just in case. So I'm taking the back off the tri-field meter, and all of a sudden I just said, guys, does anybody else feel like you're being watched? And I don't mean from up there. And it was honestly at that moment, seriously, it was physical. And it was this panic. It was this terror that just like all of a sudden, every single cell in my body was on fire, terror, not fight or flight, times it by 100. And I just turned and I started running. When I turned, I saw the witness turn and he's running too. Like it was almost hive-minded. It was just, so we're running. And all I can see is this light and it's doing this. It's right in front of me. And all of a sudden, boom, I hit like a brick wall. And it turned out to be the witness. He stopped. And of course, this was the flashlight he had in his hand. So as he's running, so all of a sudden he says, what the F is that? And he has this big halogen flashlight. Yeah. And he took his left hand and he went like that. And here's a little gray being, not 6 feet from us.
What?
And a completely gray being. And all of a sudden, I just turned around and started running again. I don't know why. We just did. So, so we get into his truck and we go back and we drive up to his driveway. And once I got out, the fear was gone. I don't even know when it left. It just wasn't there then. Right. And we get out. Nobody's saying anything at first. I just remember like, what just happened? Why did we run? Like, there was a being there. I've got, footprints. It's like 100 things, that I could do. And, but we had now just become witnesses ourselves. Wow. So the other investigator decided I asked her to call our state director. We have to report this, get other people out. We can't talk to each other because, we can't compare stories. That's not how it works. Yeah. And it was the witness. And he literally came up to me. He's like on his knee. And he's just like, oh my God, Chase, thank you so much. You saw that, right? I'm not crazy. I'm like, you're not crazy. And he goes, what was that? And all I said was, it was real.
Wow.
I can't compare stories. So it took about 30 minutes and we're right back in the field. I was just stunned, like, why did we run? You know, and some people say, why'd you guys run away from an alien? We didn't run away from an alien. We actually ran straight to it, if you want to know the truth, you know?
Yeah.
And I just believe to this day, you know, we go out there, I can see every step we took, even exactly where it happened, because that's where, like, kind of scuffs from me hitting the witness and, you know.
Sure.
And there's nothing there. And I was so frustrated. It's just, it's like, come on. And yeah, so
they're the kind of cases where, I mean, I've spoken to quite a lot of people in the past few months and stuff. That doesn't sound like a lot, but I've spoken to a lot of people in a short amount of time. And you are coming from this background of science and proper investigations, and you become a witness to something so incredible. The kind of things that you've been looking into yourself and speaking to witnesses of, and you've become one of them. I mean, that's where the real credibility really stands strong for me. And I can almost feel it just listening to the way you say it, that it's almost unbelievable what you're seeing.
Well, and the whole way home, I kept saying, this is BS, right? Like, nobody gets everything in one night. What the hell just happened? I kept saying this. Well, you know, the reason I always say the other investigator is I don't name her name, because she was so traumatized by this event that it was, I think it was like 10 days, maybe 2 weeks later, she gets up, gets in her car and drives away. She left her house, her family, her husband, and like, she just drove, and no one knew where she was. She was actually a missing person for a while. And then they found her, you know, living in a Jeep or a van with a musician or something. I don't know. But I don't know if this event triggered that kind of behavior, but you know, I just wish her well and gave her the respect not to bring her name up on it anymore.
Absolutely. So, but it could well be a case of PTSD or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the witness he still wants to be confidential. I'm hoping he comes out soon. I think he will eventually.
Yeah.
But he's a very, very well-known sports figure. Let me just put it that way.
Wow.
And I don't follow the sport, so I had no idea who this guy was. But the other investigator did, and she was freaking out when we pulled up in the driveway. And I'm just like, what? I said, I don't know who he is. Like, that's crazy. So that was one. You know, I had another big experience with Chris Bledsoe, where I have a team and we kind of in this little batch of woods, and, you know, we're walking around and there's a little ditch and you come out and there should be the opening. It's a little patch of woods. And we're like walking around in this thing, in the ditch and out, in the ditch. I can't find the way out. And this was going on for like 45 minutes. It's a 2-minute walk, or probably 5 minutes. All of a sudden, we come up to the ditch, we come out. Sure enough, it's right there. Like, here's the end, like how it's supposed to be. So we finished the investigation. Before we left, though, part of my team, some of the guys were like feeling nauseated, and a couple felt dizzy and just like disoriented. So we took a break for about 5 minutes. 3 days later, one of our evidence analysts that does a video, because I always have a body cam on, you know, so hopefully catch him what I get. And he calls, he says, you're not going to like this, Chase, because everyone knows I'll investigate. I don't want any part of it. Like, don't take me away. Like, you don't need to scare me out of a field because we weren't supposed to be there. Whatever was going on in that cornfield, we weren't supposed to be there. Like, just tell me to leave. I'll be like, okay. You know, I'm the one that goes into a haunted house. They say, get out. I'm like, okay, I'll see you in an hour. But, yeah, and he just said all 3 helmet cams are missing 8 minutes. So I called Chris Bledsoe, and he's like, oh, I know. He's
used to that kind of thing.
Yeah, he is, because he's, you know, his whole life. I investigated Chris for a couple of years, and, you know, he's so legit. But, yeah, all that high strangeness stuff, he's so used to. Me, it's nuts and bolts. You know, I'm picking up soil samples, people. I'm not supposed to be missing time.
Sure, exactly. And that's what really grabs me when you get people that are very nuts and bolts investigators. I'm very nuts and bolts myself. And it crosses into that high strangeness, and there's no explanation. You just cannot put your finger on what it is. And I think we're seeing that a lot more in the last year or two. And I think that's the direction, personally, I think that's the direction we're going in with the whole subject, that everything is combining into one big thing that we're yet to grasp and fully understand. And in a way, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, you're right, Vinny, because all the nuts and bolts in the world has really brought a lot to the table, like, physical evidence, things like this. But it's all coming down to consciousness and dimensions, I believe,
Absolutely.
And I don't think it has to be just one or the other. Is it angels and demons, or is it aliens? It's like, maybe it's all of it.
Yeah.
Maybe Bigfoot does come out of a portal, and where he comes from, he's not a big dumb animal, right? It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's, I think it's an exciting time, but I continue with the scientific investigation, but it is consciousness and dimensions. That's my conclusion and my personal, science doesn't care what we believe. So that's why I continue on with that. But that's my belief.
It mirrors exactly what I've been telling all my followers and colleagues, that recently my whole perspective has shifted, because the nuts and bolts have only taken me so far. Right. Now I'm at a dead end. I need to then move into that new realm, that new aspect of consciousness and the high strangeness and things. And I believe that is where I'm going to get the end of my conclusion, which would be full disclosure and all of that. But I'm having to delve outside of my comfort zone, and the decade of research that I've done has now become a place that I never thought I'd end up. But I have to.
Same here. And you see, Richard Dolan's talking consciousness, and Linda was the first one to really come out. I don't always agree with everything Linda says or whatever, but my respect for her is like through the roof. I mean, again, she was a trailblazer for a lot of women, not to be afraid to stand our ground and say, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think most people are getting to that point because that's where the evidence is showing us. This is where it goes. It's kind of a big deal.
It is.
Disclosure. When people say we're ready for disclosure, just to put it out there, the government needs to say that. Could be a little short-minded or short-sighted, because we've been doing this for how long? And, now how do you explain consciousness? Because it's not necessarily, E.T. coming here on a full tank of gas and a Red Bull, right? So that would be easy. That would be an easy disclosure.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. How are we going to explain to the world population that abduction's real? They can take you. And they have been.
Yep.
How do you don't think that's going to scare people? What about the 12-year-old that hears it, or the 8-year-old little girl or guy, or, or grandma, or, so it's bigger than just saying UFOs are real, because everything else is real as well. So is this a drip and a slow disclosure? I think we need to do it that way.
Yes.
Even our lawmakers can't swallow this right now. They don't want to hear about Roswell. They don't want to hear about cases we've done in the past. What do I need to know today that I need to focus on to protect this country? So, it's just, I think we have to think of that bigger picture. And so what happens if we say, oh yeah, now there's portals, and, Bigfoot's been seen coming out of it by very, very credible scientists. And, I think even just talking about the abductions as part of disclosure, that's enough to scare so many people. And yeah.
I agree completely. And I think we're at this stage where the process has begun of disclosure, but it's early days. We're at the starting line, and it's a good progression forwards, but it does then mean a lot more is coming, and we've got to play it out. We've got to wait it out. We've got to research more. And it does take people like me and you to then go from our nuts and bolts and shift our paradigm completely to accept that this could be something completely different and way out of our expectations of where we've worked from to now. It's a new step and a new direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't see this coming. Certainly didn't see government insiders and CIA personnel coming out and being the ones to open this, absolutely open this wide open. And to me, it was, looking back, it's the only way it was going to be credible. In a way, I think ufologists have almost been fired. They're not calling They're not calling the Richard Dolans, you know, they're calling Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon. And, you know, it's just, you know, they've kind of taken the reins of this. Am I insulted? No. What do I do? Hey, Lou, how can I help? What can I do to help you? You know, and that's where, you know, the egos have got to go. Yeah. You know, it's like, I don't care who gets this out. It's out. And I'm so thankful for that, because I honestly, Vinny, never thought in my lifetime I would see this happen. And now that it is, I'm so grateful. We have a report that, you know, a little disappointing, not too surprised, but we have a report that says we can't rule out UFOs. So I just, to me, this is like huge. And, you know, and that's my thing now. So what am I doing for work these days? Really supporting and seeing what I can follow up and help, you know, the guys that really do have the football and are running, you know, the quarterbacks running down the field. You know, they need tight ends, they need, you know, whatever other things they have there in football. But, you know, it takes a team, and it's not going to be one person. And, you know, I don't have to lead. I'm more than happy to, you know, what do you need? I'll call and make appointments. I'll do, you know, what do you need? So that's what I'm doing now.
Amazing. That's so good. Well, listen, Chase, I feel like we could do another hour of this. So what I will put to you right now is that maybe you'll come back in a few weeks, months and that, and we'll do this again. Maybe we'll get some other people to join us.
Yeah.
We'll do a big panel discussion.
Anytime. I love your show. I adore you. And it's like, anytime I'll be here. I'll be here.
I mean, that hits home, Chase, coming from you. It really does mean the world to me. Like I said, for following your work for so long, and yes, I know you don't like to be the one in the eye, but it's your work that really does the job. You are still, as a person, so important to me and people like me that are newer to the subject, let's say.
Well, so thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. And yeah, you better believe I will be hitting you up for something in a few weeks or months' time, because I think
it'll be fun, especially get like panels and stuff.
Let's do a panel. I have not done I've done one panel, and I felt that was amazing. And to have you on a panel, incredible. So let's make that happen. We'll talk behind the scenes. But for now, Chase, thank you so much for sharing your story with me and joining me.
You're welcome.
Until the next, so guys, thank you everyone for watching right now. I appreciate you all for the continued support. It means the world to me. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.